I'm going to show an example how to upgrade Tailwind CSS project from the third version to the latest 4th. Thankfully, Tailwind provides us with a tool to do most of this upgrade automatically by running the following command. And then we can just review the changes being made by this tool, and if necessary, do some fixes manually. But sometimes it might not be possible to use this tool, like in our case, since I have basically installed Tailwind CSS by using CDN link instead of using it as a post CSS plugin. So in my case, I cannot really use the tool to do this upgrade, so I will have to do these steps to upgrade the project manually. So here is the page that we are going to upgrade to Tailwind CSS v4. The link to the source code of this page will be in the video description. This is basically just a simple index.html file, which can be opened by using any web server. To run the server, I'm using live server utility, which can be installed by npm. And then we can run live server command from within the folder where our template files are stored. And all of them will be available in the browser by the address shown in the terminal. So let's open up index.html page that we are going to migrate in the editor. And I'm basically going to start with changing the CDN link to include Tailwind CSS4. So let's use a proper link here. Right away we're seeing how some of the styles are broken on the page, especially container styles, since those containers are no longer centered on the page and they are missing paddings. So if before we were using Tailwind CSS configuration files to configure it by using JavaScript, as you can see in here, I'm applying some overrides to the container classes. Now we're going to configure Tailwind CSS completely within CSS file. And let's see how to reproduce the same configuration within the CSS file. Alright, since we have to override styles of the container utility, I'm using utility directive and specify the class that we are about to override styles for. And right here, I'm going to override paddings of the container, as well as position the container in the center by using margin inline property with the value of auto, like this. And just because we need this container to have bigger paddings on bigger screens, I'm going to use variant directive and specify SM, meaning that all the styles that will be enclosed in this block will be applied only on screens starting from tablet and above. So I'm making paddings bigger on bigger screens. So this way we have fully reproduced that container configuration specified right here. And if we'll take a look at the page, we can see that now all containers are centered like before. So we can remove the previous configuration of the container, and let's move on to other overrides. In here we also override the font that has to be used by default. And by the way, this font gets loaded from the Google Fonts service. So we are firstly going to load this font, but not by using link tag like here. And actually we don't need these two link tags, let's just remove them. And now I'm going to scroll down to the CSS section, and right here let's use import directive and load the font like this. And now we can remove that link tag which includes this font, since we're doing this from within the CSS section. And to apply this font by default, we have to reproduce the same configuration but inside of CSS section. And to do so, I'm going to use theme directive, where we're going to override default Tailwind CSS variables, and the variable that we need to override in order to set the default font is called font sans. And let's specify the font name. The font is called Open Sans, as shown right here. Tailwind CSS provides us with a variety of different variables that we can override, and all of them are listed in the theme variables section in Tailwind CSS docs. As you can see, there are lots of variables that we can override. But after the latest changes, our page is broken, so we also have to include Tailwind CSS by using import directive, like so. Because if we'll take a look in the docs once again, open up upgrade guide section, and right here we can see that now we can include Tailwind CSS by using only one directive instead of 3, as it was before. So styles on the page look good again. And now if we'll inspect any element and check which font is used for the element, we can see that font family is Open Sans, the one we have specified earlier in the configuration. So the Open Sans font is applied globally. Alright, so we can remove previous configuration for the font, and now we're left with only one configuration that we still have to apply in Tailwind CSS 4. So this configuration changes strategy on how the dark mode has to be applied to our page. We're using manual strategy, which means the dark mode will be applied only when we will explicitly add class with name of dark on one of our texts. And to specify the same strategy in Tailwind CSS 4, we have to add the following line in our CSS file. So let's grab this line, and then to enable dark mode, we simply can add class with name of dark to one of our elements, and then use dark theme classes with the prefix of dark. So let's grab that line and paste it in our CSS file. So if I'm going to remove the class with the name of dark, the light theme will be active on the page. So now we can fully get rid of that JavaScript configuration of Tailwind CSS, since we have migrated all those configurations and converted them to use CSS syntax instead. And now there are a couple more fixes and improvements left to do in order to complete this Tailwind CSS 4 migration. I have defined custom class with the name of perspective 1000 in here to apply perspective to one of the elements on the page, in particular to this element, which wraps an image with its reflection. But in Tailwind CSS 4 there are default classes that add styles with a perspective property, and one of them we can use. For example, this one, which sets perspective to the value of 1200 pixels. It is the closest value to 1000 that we have here, so we can basically replace this custom class with a default one and use it in here. So there is no need to keep that custom class perspective 1000 anymore. Let's remove this block. And there we go. We can see that perspective was applied to this image, and now the right side of this image looks to be closer to us than the left one. Now I'm going to zoom in to get to mobile view of this page. Let's activate light theme for now. And as you can see, the bottom border of the header is black now, but it has to be dark gray, as well as the border of mobile navigation right here. And that is because in Tailwind CSS 3, if we were using borders without specifying colors for borders, the default color, which is gray 200, was used. And in Tailwind CSS 4, if we're gonna use border classes, we also have to manually specify color for borders. So I'm going to add border gray 200 class in here, right next to border B class for the header. And let's also do the same change to the mobile navigation right here. And now those borders have become gray as before. Moving on, let's scroll down the page. There is this input field in here, but the shadow has become bigger than before. And that's because I'm using class shadow SM for this input. But in Tailwind CSS 4, to achieve the same style provided by shadow SM class in version 3, we have to use shadow XS class instead. And after doing this, the shadow will become smaller. Next one, I prefer to get rid of this double outline when we focus on this field. I'm talking about the outer black outline, and to do so we can apply ring transparent class, which is basically going to make solid shadow transparent. As you can see, it's gone. Now I'm going to get back the dark theme, and let's take a look at that input, how it looks like while dark theme is active. There is still this double outline, so let's get rid of it by applying outline hidden class. And that's it, the outline is fixed. And the last change we're going to do before wrapping up is we're gonna have to add cursor pointer class to all the buttons, because in Tailwind CSS 4, when hovering over the buttons, the cursor doesn't change on the pointer like before, so we need to manually specify the cursor pointer class on buttons. And that's all that we had to do to update this page to use Tailwind CSS 4. And just to summarize, let's go over some of those steps we have just gone through. First of all, we have replaced the address of Tailwind CSS script. Then we have included Open Sans font, included Tailwind CSS, changed dark mode strategy to apply it manually by using the dark class instead of relying on the dark mode preferences of the operating system. Then we have applied custom font globally, kept some of the custom classes within the components layer, and overwritten some configurations for the container utility. Link to the source code will be in the video description. And if you would like to see how to build this page step by step by using Tailwind CSS, there is a separate playlist, link to which I'm also going to leave in the video description.